So this show is about you and your questions. You know, 3 times a month, I schedule a lot of times guests on our weekly show, but I also want to protect time at least once a month where you get to ask the questions on the topics, the subjects, the issues that are concerning you. So we'll be doing that today. Welcome, say hi. I love that you're watching here live and as a replay viewer. That's great. You can continue asking your questions in the comments and I will come back and answer them. If we haven't met before, I'm Charmaine Tanner. I'm a retired teacher, a parent, and I host this weekly Facebook Live show in between my full-time advocacy job. So I also do individual advocacy for families. So I am glad that you're here, and I see that Mindy has already posted a comment. So let me go over here. The other thing I want to tell you, so then you can help remind me, is we haven't had a drawing in a while for our Louise Hayes Love Yourself cards. So today we have 3 giveaways of our awesome advocacy, love yourself, affirmations. So we'll do that later today. So Mindy, let's put up your question. Let me show it here. Let me get my glasses. Mindy says, my son in kindergarten is starting to refuse math work. His special ed teacher emailed me and asked if I had any suggestions for motivating. We often use iPad as a reward for after school. I suggested finding a strong math peer to pair him with during table work, but don't know how to continue the conversation without sounding like I'm being pushy or telling them how to run the whole class. Is it okay for me to offer suggestions that I know will likely work for my son, but that may impact others in the class? So thanks for asking this, Mindy. This is a great question. And I want to say a quick hi to Karen. So Mindy, yes, I think this is a perfect opportunity for you to have, another conversation with the kindergarten teacher and have the special ed teacher there also. But I think you want to move into making sure that the kindergarten teacher hears your tips and suggestions too. And, because your son is young and chances are, this is the first time he's been in the school building as a kindergartner. You haven't had a chance to develop that much of a relationship. And I don't know if you've heard me say this before, Mindy, but I think the 3 R's of advocacy are relationships, relationships, relationships. So I think use this open door opportunity, and you considered it an open door because they were nice and emailed back and seemed open to your ideas. To say, I would love to sit down and see if we could just chat and you could tell me what's working really well at school. So then I can make sure when we're doing, kind of more, I don't know, in kindergarten, hopefully you're not doing homework, structured homework, but just tips that they have at school. So first of all, you're going to ask them for help. And you're going to honor and value the experience and the knowledge that they have. And then you're also going to say, and I can also share some things that have been working at home. I don't want to keep them a secret because, maybe they would help at school too. And you just leave it at that. So a lot of times I suggest your emails are short and sweet. And you can go back to re-listen to this part of the video to get the idea of what to write again. But basically, you want to respect them. You want to ask for their ideas first. You also want to share that you have some things that have worked for you at home. And then I would hope right? That they would set up a time, and maybe it's just a half hour. You want to be also cautious about taking up a lot of their time. So, but then when you get to the meeting in person, one of the things that I think really helps is to say, you know, part of me was like hesitant. I didn't want to, you know, feel like I was coming in here telling you guys what to do. I really want to learn from you. And I hope that you know that, you know, I'm being honest with that. And I also do want to share tips, and it's not meant to, you know, make anybody feel defensive. It's just like, you know, why reinvent the wheel if we've already figured out some things that work, right? So I think that kind of opening statement helps lay the groundwork that you're there in partnership. You're not there to be critical of them. And of course, your very first statement is going to be different as far as thanking them and that general kind of niceness of, since they're carving out some time to talk with you. And of course, you know, parents are important for them to talk to. So yeah, so I would say definitely, Mindy, use this as a chance to follow up. So let me see if you have any other questions about a situation like that. And Marie, hello, how are you doing there? Let us know what questions you have. I don't know, Anne-Marie, if you saw the live or the replay that I did last week with Paula Kluth, and we were talking about don't we already do inclusion? And kind of the focus of the show was, you know, is how do you know when something is too special? So Anne-Marie, if you were on that show or if you have other questions, let me know. Jennifer, hey there. She's saying hi to everybody. And Jennifer, I don't know if you've recently gotten your child's second quarter progress report, because that could be something that we talk about today too. If you've got questions about progress reports, or if there's something else you would love to ask, let us know. And Mindy says, we have an IEP meeting next week, so we'll be perfect timing. Oh, good. His kindergarten teacher just finished student teaching and took over his class after Christmas. We have a good relationship with SPED. Okay, thank you. So cool. I love it. I love it. I love it when things come together. And let me hide this for a second. So yeah, that is perfect timing, Mindy. So that always reinforces me to think, yes, these Q&A shows are good and worthwhile. And the other thing I always think about too is somebody else asks a question and it's like, oh, whatever we talk about then, it's like something that you can use too. So that's my hope. So Jessica says, my daughter is in an inclusive grade 5 classroom. She is getting pulled out a great deal. So yeah, so then I don't think that meets the definition of an inclusive grade 5 classroom, right? So one thing, Jessica, is, okay, so here's, she says, so far, thumbs up. We want her in the classroom. Okay, good. Working with her peers on some modified but similar work to her peers. Yeah, so that's very cool because that's what you want, right? You want the supports pushed into her 5th grade class. You want her working with peers, either the teacher, the general ed teacher, the special ed teacher is hopefully doing the modifications and things are going well. But then the first thing that you said was that she's getting pulled out a lot. So that's where I'm a little confused. Is this a part? Yeah, so what is she getting pulled out for? My guess is it's academic subjects. I guess is they're saying the gap is too wide between what the 5th graders are doing and maybe where your daughter's performing. So let me know if that's the issue and how do you feel about her being pulled out for whatever subject she's being pulled out for? So just leave another comment and I'll come back. Let's see. And, oh, she said work isn't being modified. Sorry. I should have put my glasses on. Oh. Okay. Well, that's an entire different case, right? Remind me, Jessica, if I don't put it in the post after the show is done. I've done a couple shows with Nicole Ericks, and she has a great book about giving practical examples of modifications for teachers. It's called IEP and it's called Inclusion in Action. And I can give you the links to those shows. But yeah, so that's a huge thing. So, basically you want to look at the IEP. Are there any modifications written in the IEP now? Or is it so generic that it can mean anything? And you've got to most likely call an IEP meeting and get the IEP amended so the team can talk about what kind of modified work is needed and what different subjects. I also like to put in the optional statement of service delivery what those, modifications are going to look like, who's not exactly what they're going to look like, but who's going to be responsible for making them. And sometimes they'll say that's not an IEP issue, but I think it's really important because that optional statement of service delivery, the intent of it is to help parents understand what that whole service grid of 240 minutes a week of reading help and everything else is really going to look like. So somewhere I want a written explanation of who's going to be responsible for what. As far as making the accommodations and modifications, as far as explaining them to the teacher or to a para, if a para is in the classroom. So yeah, I would say, Jessica, that you want to call an IEP meeting. You could, have a conversation with teachers ahead of time to give them a heads up, and you might be able to brainstorm some things just in an informal conversation, but you want to go back and document that either as an amendment to the IEP, or you call the team back together and you're all kind of looking at other sections that might need to be amended too. So just remind me about that link for those other videos that I did. Anne-Marie, yeah, so she said, yeah, so you want to go back and see that. I think you'll really enjoy that. That was my interview with Paula Kluth. And as always, because it's Paula Kluth, it was pretty extraordinary. Kimberly, hey Kimberly, she's a trailblazer in our Trailblazer membership group, and she's checking in from Iowa. And you're probably going to be glad when the primary is over, so you don't have lots of stuff going on in Iowa, right? Jessica says the gap is there, but she has a one-to-one EA. So in my opinion, it shouldn't be, and this is like where I need be an issue. So yeah, the caution I have with one-to-one, educational assistants, paraprofessionals, is that sometimes it's more of a hindrance than a help, especially if they're a hovering EA or a Velcroed VA, and they're not giving your child space to try to do things. One of the indicators to me of a para probably not being used in the most efficient way is when I see an adult chair next to the child's table or desk, and I know that that person probably spends a lot of time sitting right next to them. So sometimes I think we have to look at, you know, what the big goal of having another adult in the classroom is, and then look at a variety of ways that we can get, if our child needs extra adult support, how that can happen. The best practice, I believe, is for the EA or the para to be assigned to the classroom versus to one child. Because we want the para to have permission to walk around and help other kids and do other things versus being Velcroed to your child, or being in a table at the back of the room with your child doing something totally different. So it depends on how the EA is being used, if it's really helpful to have an assigned one-on-one. And I've done videos about kind of the Goldilocks theory of using paraprofessionals, as far as, you know, we don't want too much help, we don't want too little of help, we want just the right amount of help from another adult. So if you want the links to those shows that I did, let me know and I can get that to you. And let's go down here and see my... So Anne Marie says, most families say to stay away from things like state assessments. And, you know, I mean, there's kind of two schools of thought. One school of thought is, by having your child take a state assessment, the teachers are going to be, I don't know, more accountable for making sure that your child learns academic information throughout the year. The other school of thought about, and this is like real simplified, right? But the other school of thought about state assessments is like they're meaningless and it's a waste of my kid's time. It stresses my child out. There's really no purpose to it. So both schools of thought, I think, have valid points. And so as a parent, you have to kind of weigh that out. When my son was in school and they started doing state assessments, I think maybe the first couple, I just like signed a waiver or something. I don't think he did them. I don't know. But I remember in middle school, and I think they just had 1 year in high school of state assessments, that he did the alternative assessment. Excuse me. And yeah, I didn't think they were very meaningful. But I don't know. So you just have to kind of weigh that out. It can be kind of one way to keep people accountable for teaching your kid, but in another way, it can be kind of a use of, not a good use of time. So Kimberly says, my glasses will have a glare, but my son also gets pulled out 15 to 20 minutes. I have a meeting with his teacher right after this live program, but can't think of a good question. But Jessica's question I can apply to our situation. Cool. So what's he getting pulled out for, Kimberly? I don't remember. I'm sorry. And what is he missing, right? I mean, that's part of the equation too. It's like, if you get pulled out, you're missing something from general ed. So, you know, you have to weigh that. And yeah, I think having that discussion and kind of looking at what the inclusive classroom is really going to look like and what needs to be in place in order for your child to be successful. Because one of the things that I hate to see is if a school team is really resistant to your child being included, and for one reason or other, they decide, okay, whatever, we'll do it. but they don't really commit to it, and it's almost like they're setting your child up for failure. So we want people to be successful. We want people to be positive about including your child in the classroom, and make sure not only does your child get the supports, but the staff that works with your child gets the supports. And that might mean training for the staff. And so that's a whole nother topic we can talk about one day too, is where to put staff training into the IEP. And if you'd like a video on that, let me know. I have lots of videos I can share with you. So let me scroll here and see if we have any other comments that I missed. I love it that you guys are interacting. It makes life so much nicer. Why don't we do a drawing? Well, I'm kind of looking through the comments here. So if you haven't been with us before, what you do is I'm going to close my eyes and scroll through the comments and stop on one of the comments, and that person is a lucky winner. And you can pick either U, O, or Y. O, U. I do know how to spell U. And we will draw somebody. So I'm going to close my eyes and scroll. Scroll, scroll. This is the high-tech way of drawing the winner. And the person I stopped on is Anna Marie. Cool. So Anna Marie, do you want the card of Y, O, or U? Let me know in the comments, and then I can do somebody else and we'll have another drawing. So let me look back through here. Let me check. Yeah, and we have time. So if you guys have more questions or kind of follow-ups, let me know. And I think we might have, oh, okay. So here's the first part of Anna Marie's question I didn't see. She said, would you suggest doing the 4K, I guess that's the name of their state assessments in South Carolina, for general ed? 4K is based on developmental needs, socioeconomic, or just hoping her team will suggest classes with her typical peers. So I'm not sure what you mean by the 4K assessment, Anna Marie. So if you can let me know what that is. And is that something that they do with all the students to kind of get an idea of classes that would be a good match? I'm not sure. So let me know what the 4K assessment is and what the purpose of it is, and then I could talk to you. So Karen, yay, she was the winner of Paula Klu's Don't We Already Do Inclusion book last week. And she said, wanted to let you know that Paula Klu's book came. Thank you. I bought another book by her after thumbing through this one and can't wait to read them and all of the other books that I haven't found enough time for lately. I bought a second copy for her son's school team. Oh, how great. So yeah. And Mindy, you know, thanks, Karen. I think that's wonderful. And what's so nice is look how you're spreading that knowledge to everybody, right? And so, Mindy, that just makes me think of your question meeting with the kindergarten teachers. You know, not this meeting, but maybe the next meeting, you can say, oh, I saw this book. I thought of you guys. I wanted to share it with you. So that's another way that you can help teachers kind of learn more about inclusive ed and how things are going. So let me do another. So Anne-Marie, did you let me know if you want? Let me look in the comments. Why? O or U. So let me know, Anne-Marie, which letter you want, because then I know which other letter to give away. While we're waiting for Anne-Marie to let us know her letter, Kimberly says, I agree with you 100% on the chair for the educational assistant. This is the first year I feel my son does not depend on his EA or even acknowledge that she is there for him. One thing I love about his second grade year. Yes, that's like a huge gain, right? Kimberly says he's getting pulled out for reading for 20 minutes, math for 20 minutes, and push-in for handwriting. I think it's push-in. I will ask about what he is missing. Yeah, so, you know, if you and the team agree that he needs that 20 minutes of instruction elsewhere, the best time, I guess, to be pulled out for that would be when the students are also doing math. What I like to see is that all the students are in the classroom for that, you know, kind of overall lesson that the teacher does. And next, then the teacher should be doing some, well, it's like a 3-step thing. To, with, by. So first the teacher wants to show it to the kids, explain it to the kids, then do it with the kids, and then have the kids do it by themselves. So that's, again, a very simplified process. So if your son can be there for the to, getting the lesson from the teacher, the with, doing it with the teacher, and then the independent part would be the better time for him to get some other instruction, because he's not missing the volcano exploding at social studies time. Instead, he's doing extra math when the other kids are doing math. So see if that makes sense. So Mindy says, I used the Segway last year. I'm a reader, and I know most teachers are too. I have this wonderful book I'd like to share with you for over the summer reading. I love it. That is like a wonderful segue. Yeah. We'll have to make that into a quote card, because you guys come up with great things, and it's like, I want to start celebrating the things that you come up with. So yeah, that's a great thing. And then the other thing I suggest is to also talk to teachers about, I know you're real busy. Would you like it in the would you like a podcast that is about the show? Like Shelley Moore, Julie Costin's podcasts come to mind, which are excellent resources. So maybe the teacher would really prefer a podcast. So try, just like we want our kids to have curriculum delivered in ways that is individualized, let's individualize the professional development help that we give teachers. Do you want it as a video? And again, we can, give you links for videos. Paula Kluth has great video series, her Off the Page. Shelley Moore has like wonderful videos too, right? So anyway, let the teachers kind of pick. Would you like a short article? Would you like a book? Would you like a podcast, a video? And that way they get it for what works for them. Let me see, Laura. Hey, Laura. She says, my child is homebound. We use to Skype in for both social and academic benefit. The current staff don't have time or don't want to be bothered. Do I need to have a specific amount of time in his IEP? Yeah, and this is a great question. And it's like a way that technology is like so incredibly helpful. I have heard of, I haven't ever, used it as a teacher, but even some school districts have like robots in the classroom that can, be focused on the teacher and the demonstration or whatever, and pick up the video and audio. And so that's even a little more high tech than Skype. But yeah, you would need to have something like that written in the IEP, or else you can't hold them accountable for it. You can only hold schools accountable for what's written in the IEP. And then you have to be really knowledgeable about how to get that specific language in your IEP, because if it's just generic and not really nailed down, then it's like a huge loophole that school districts can wiggle through. So I would, again, like Mindy, have a conversation and then maybe follow up with a request to an IEP meeting if they don't suggest that. So the IEP could be amended. And depending on your district, you can amend an IEP without having the full-blown team there. For most discussions, I still want to have the whole team there, because I want the general ed teacher hearing about what Skype looks like in their classroom. I want the special ed teacher there to give suggestions. So I think it is really helpful to have a bigger team. Excuse me. When you're looking at kind of a bigger issue to amend the IEP with. And Laura says it's written in the IEP, but no specific amount of time. Yeah. So see, that's where the general knowledge or the general thought of using Skype is in there. But that little detail of, ooh, how much time? Yeah. So you need to go back and amend that. And, if it's for certain subjects, and if the teacher has, I don't know, a 60-minute block of time for math, how much of that math instruction do you want, your child to be receiving? What's that going to look like? So go back and amend. So Anne Marie says, what tips do you have to help parents find out if professional development is completed if the parents added to the IEPs for like alternative assistive technology or a specific person coming in? Let me take another sip of water. So that's an excellent question, because you want to write in as specific as you can get them to agree to, right? For professional development. Who's going to provide it? When's it going to be done? What's the format? You can even ask for a copy of the training materials, like the PowerPoint or the handouts or whatever the trainer is using. The huge thing, I think, that gets left out of professional development training is follow-up coaching. And if you want, let me know in the comments. I have this great graph, and now I can't think of the two researchers. It starts with an S, their name. But it shows that if you only have, like this quick in-service, that 0% of that is going to be applied in the classroom, and that you really need to have, that general knowledge, those handouts, that general in-service, but you've got to follow up with coaching, or none of that new training is really going to get implemented with fidelity in the classroom. Some I have seen, and usually more settlement agreements than in IEPs, but I have also seen where people have to sign in, like a signature, so you really see that it's that person. People have to sign in for the workshop, and some districts do that for accountability for all their staff, not just for training for an IEP situation. So you could put that in the IEP if you want. You could request that. And that would be a way of assurance. The other thing that I love to encourage families and schools to do is to hold collaborative training. So if you're asking for the school to get trained on an augmentative alternative communication device, that you also are invited to that training. And then it's real easy, right, to see who's there and who's not there. But the nice thing about being in a collaborative training situation is you all hear the same message the same way. You can all ask questions. And so I encourage you as a parent, or if you're a teacher, to talk to the principal, talk to your director of instruction and curriculum or whoever, and look at opening up more professional development trainings, not just for teachers, but for parents. Like, you know, when your PTO or PTA has a workshop for parents, make sure that's open for teachers. So more collaboration, I think, will be helpful. Let's see. Jennifer says, trying to copy paste my comments from above about my daughter's IEP, if you have any thoughts. Okay, let me go back up there. The other thing is, I'm going to scroll real fast. Anne-Marie, did you pick a letter? So let's see. Jennifer, I don't want to miss you. Karen, Jessica, Kimberly, Jennifer. Oh, here you are. Cool. She said, we had my daughter's IEP end of last month, and I received a written copy to review this week. She's in second grade general classroom with a one-to-one aid and pullouts for OT and ST. We had discussed potentially trying a 4-week play-based only school day to help work on compliance goals. The BCBA is going to research more on this approach. I'm pretty open to anything at this point. Any concerns? So my first concern is the C word. And this is like covering up my face. So I'm going to pull it down for a second here. I have an aversion to the word compliance because it can be used and it can create trauma in kids depending on the person that is working on the compliance goal. So you just want to be careful what that looks like. And sometimes I like to, kind of substitute another C word for compliance, and that would be choice. So giving kids choices. I think we need to give kids a lot more choices than we usually do. And that can be everything from, do you want apple juice? Do you want cranberry juice? Do you want it in this glass? Do you want it in this mug? Do you want a full glass? Do you want a half glass? And it sounds like silly to kind of bombard them with questions. But throughout the day, I think if we give kids more choices, a lot of things will be happier because kids then will have that C word control, which we all want. So that's kind of my soapbox about compliance goals. Going back to, you said a play-based, trying a 4-week play-based only school day. Depending on what the play-based school, day looks like, I would say that would probably be exciting. However, you would want to go visit it first and get a feel for it. Just because somebody calls it play-based doesn't mean that that's really what it is. Just like when somebody says we have inclusive classes in our building, and it might not really be that way. So I would go and look at the class first, have your BCBA also go and, maybe together observe the same day, or maybe observe on different days. So you kind of get 2 different, days of observation in. But when I was still a special ed teacher, we were just starting a preschool in the building where I taught, the elementary school. And the teacher was trained in play-based assessment. And I also got some training in that. And I love that. It's like such a more natural way of looking at kids and what they're interested in and what grabs their attention and what's exciting for them. And it's so much more strength-based than a traditional preschool screening or inventory or something like that. So my short answer is yes, go visit the play-based school. And I would hope that it's one of those that I have a picture of in my mind that is just like so wonderful and exciting. The other thing that you might look at for the play-based school and really any kinds of preschool settings or things like that is the natural proportion. So if, nationally we have 12 to 14% of students having disabilities, then when I look at a classroom, I only want to see 12 to 14% of the students in that classroom that have, disabilities, and keep that natural proportion, because when you start getting to 50-50, 50% of the kids have disabilities, 50% don't, you are not at a natural proportion. And so as philosophically, as a retired teacher, that's kind of an important criteria. It's only one criteria, but that's something else that you can look at when you go visit that school. So thanks for asking that and let me know that I had missed it. So, okay, awesome. Jessica says, awesome. She says that she loved the Paula Cluth video. Yeah, that was a good show. So Jessica was saying, I guess for her child, when we were talking about pairs, oh my goodness, yes. She has a table, and we would rather, like in previous years, have her sitting with her peers and accessing some of those natural supports. So yeah, that's called The Island in the Mainstream. And if you saw my show the week prior to Paula Cluth, I had talked with Barbara Buswell from Peak Parent Center in Colorado, and she was talking about when her son 30 some years ago was first included, that was, the back table with this older lady that was supposed to be helping him. And speaking of Peak Parents Center, I want you to know I'm going to be speaking there in February in Denver, Colorado. So I was going to try and show this. You can, let me show you the link, because you can get early registration for the conference and save money, but you have to, oh shoot, why don't I have that? I don't have it. You have to register by Friday, but there's like big people coming, like Jonathan Mooney. Have you ever heard Jonathan Mooney speak? I just got his new book. So here's the link if you want to register and save money for Peak's conference. Jonathan Mooney is going to be there. Patrick Schwartz, who has written Just Give Him the Whale with Paula Cluth, and Patrick Schwartz speaks all over the country about inclusive ed. Jonathan Mooney is a self-advocate, a disability rights advocate, and he has dyslexia, and he tells incredible stories about growing up and what school was like. I remember one of the first times I heard Jonathan Mooney talk, he was talking about how his teacher used the F word. And it was like, what? Oh my God, what happened to that teacher? But guess what the F word was? The teacher was like so frustrated with Jonathan not sitting still, not doing, probably not complying, that she yelled this F word. So tell me, what do you think the F word was? It was focus. And Jonathan talks about, that's not always possible when you have some kids. he went on to graduate from Brown University. He has a nonprofit called Eye to Eye Foundation. So they're going to be at Peak Parents Inclusive Education Conference. My son and I are doing a breakout session on Inclusion Goes to College. Do it yourself with Allies way. I'm going to be doing a breakout session on how to build inclusion into your IEP. So Denver, Colorado, February 21st, 22nd. There are people from every state and most times from Canada also, and other foreign countries that come to Denver each February for Peaks Inclusion Conference. So I know Karen is coming, so I'm excited because I get to meet Karen in person instead of just on our live shows. But that's the link, and I'll put it in the comments, or I might have, where you get the registration. So let's look at, Anne-Marie, did you pick a letter? Because I want to give these others away. Oh, good. Karen's coming. Mindy says yuck to the table. So we've got two more. I don't know which ones. So I guess the next person gets to pick. So we still got the Y, O, and U because I'm not sure what letter Anne-Marie's going to pick. So let me close my eyes. I'm going to scroll. I'm going to pick another winner, and it is Holly. Yeah, and Holly said, and I forgot to put this up, we have teachers sign a sheet of paper and put it in our documents. Cool. So Holly, if you're still here, you get Y, O, or U. Which one would you like, Holly? Y, O, or U? And we've got a couple other questions, and then we'll do our final draw. Anne-Marie says yes, especially because she's has new teachers this year also. Yeah, so that's like huge, right? Mindy, is it common for workshops throughout the school to be open to parents? I love the idea, but don't think anything like that has ever been done in our area. Probably not. And that's why it's the perfect opportunity for you to ask about that. So, you know, and it depends on the culture in your district. Some districts are like, we don't want parents to know about something before we tell teachers, which is kind of silly, right? But that's kind of where it is. And other districts are very collaborative, and they never thought about it. It's like, oh, why didn't we think about that beforehand? So you might want to get a feel for the culture. So I would start with somebody that you feel, you know, is a friend, you have a relationship, an ally in the building, and say, what do you think? Do you think the principal, you know, would go for this idea, or do you think the district would go for it? And just start talking about it. And, you know, maybe not, you know, maybe they try one first workshop and see how it goes. And they realize the parents aren't going to storm them and throw tomatoes at them. It will be okay. So, yeah, I mean, it might be they just have some fears about having parents know what teachers know. And you need to work through that. But I would for sure talk to somebody about it and see, you know, and then see what the principal would think. And Jennifer says, I agree with your thoughts on compliance. I think the term to be used instead is attending. Yeah, and then you just have to be careful. And I hate to be like all these cautions, but the other caution is for eye contact. So sometimes they'll make goals measurable by how long the child can have eye contact. Some kids listen perfectly as long as they don't have to have eye contact. So the whole thing is you know, and maybe the goal isn't even attending, but it's like, so if they attend, what outcome do they get out of attending? And then make that outcome of attending the final annual goal. So if the outcome of attending is that they can go back after listening to a story that the teacher read out loud, and they can draw 3 pictures that illustrate beginning, middle, and end of the story, then that's what my goal is. Not necessarily attending, because they could look like they're attending or whatever, but they couldn't go back to their desk and do that task that you really want them to do. So if attending comes up as like, she just needs to pay attention more, that's good that you determine that, but then go one more step and say, but what's the outcome? If she can attend better, how is that going to manifest? How are we going to see that? How is that going to benefit her? And it's hard to get IEP teams to kind of look past attending is the goal, because they're used to saying, they're going to attend to tasks so many minutes, so many times, so many days. But instead of looking at outcomes. So one of the things that I also think about is like writing your name. And, I don't know. Sometimes it's like just this repetitive long workshop or a worksheet of writing your first name. But what's the goal of being able to write your first name, right? So is it when you go to the library, you can sign on the electric pad your name, because they probably don't have those cards anymore, like my days where you had to sign the library card. But think of times when it would make sense for your kid to have to write their name. And maybe that becomes the final goal. Like if they can write, sign this and it's legible and they're not going to be a doctor and have sloppy handwriting, then maybe that's your goal versus, all this kind of OT language. But that's just me, and it's hard to get people to agree to that. So know that. Okay, so let's see. Karen says, I took my son out of ABA because they were more focused on compliance than learning. I did not ever want him to think he has to do things just because someone tells him to. So we're working on a more collaborative approach for everything possible. Yes, and I think that's one of the dangers too, is every child needs to be able to say no. Say it politely if it's a circumstance where you can be politely, no thanks. Say it real forceful if it's a safety concern and they have to be really firm by saying no. And so I think the fear on the part of parents, and I think it's a founded fear, is if I teach my kid to always do what somebody else, especially when that somebody else is an adult, are they going to carry that over into situations that aren't safe, that aren't healthy for them to do? And so, yeah, I love Dr. Ross Green's collaborative problem solving, and I think he's switched the acronym, what the words are. But if you look at collaborative problem solving, you'll find some excellent resources from Ross Green. I was going to be scrolling for another card. Okay, did I scroll? I don't think so. Oh, I did. Holly. So Holly, did you tell me what letter you want? So let me write these down. So the first person was Anne Marie, and then we have Holly, and I haven't heard from you guys. I'm going to have to assign you letters. Let me scroll some more. And we will give our third card away to Mindy. Ching, ching, ching. Okay, Mindy, if you're still with us, you get to pick Y, O, or U. Okay, let's scroll through here and see if we have any more comments. Let's see. Yeah, so we had seen this before from Kimberly about the whole subject of EAs. Let me see if I missed anybody. What tips? And we did Anne-Marie's question about professional development. Holly has a good example. She said we had an iPad robot. How cool. In our elementary school district, the little girl was going through treatment for cancer. She got to feel so included, worked out amazing. So isn't that cool? Holly lives in Arizona. So yeah, it's just like amazing with technology. And the other thing is, I remember years ago working with a mom, and her son was in high school and had autism. And it was really challenging for him to be in some of the high school classrooms with all the noise, with the lights, different things. And what we had suggested at the IEP meeting was, what about if he could go to, you know, the library or someplace like that and be able to Skype in and see the lectures? So not only for students that are on homebound instruction or in the hospital for a length of time, but even just within your school building. And what I want to see is that that kind of option is offered to all kids, right? Because it's not just that autistic student that needs maybe a quiet place to really focus on the teacher's lesson. It's most likely other kids too. So I know it's like I'm opening a big can of worms. I have a can of worms here. These are all my like kind of worm topics, but you know, if we don't open the conversation and start asking for different things, we'll never get them, right? And as long as we accept what we're offered, then that's all we're going to get. So go forth and conquer and bring up some of these ideas. Let me see. Okay, we might have covered everybody's. I hate to get off live and then go, oops, I missed this one. So Jennifer says, that's a great idea for me to go and observe. Thank you. Yes. And you could come back and let us know what you find out and what you observed. Okay, Mindy has another comment here. She said, just got a message from the special ed teacher. She said, I started math time today by saying, Noah, I know math is a little boring. How can we make it more fun? He said, yes. When she said it was boring, and he asked if they could sit on the floor. So they did, and he had a great math time. Look at that. She and the kindergarten teacher made a big deal out of how hard he worked, and he was excited. So I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at that solution. It's like, ask the kid. Oh, and look, it's a kindergartner. We don't have to wait till they're in middle school or high school before we get their input. Ask the kid, right? Oh, how wonderful. What a celebration. That is exciting. So just from moving from sitting at a desk or a table to sitting on the floor for math time was a huge deal breaker. I mean, it like made a huge difference, right? Isn't that cool? I just love it. We like simple solutions. And so many times the kids have the easy ideas that we never think of. So yes, Karen says, that's awesome. Jennifer says she's got to run. Thanks so much for these live. They are always full of great info. And let me tell you, also, next week is Guy Stevens. He's the founder and executive director of Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraints. So next week will be a hard topic in some ways, right? To think about restraint and seclusion. But it's a conversation that we need to have because it is happening more often. It certainly happens more often than what is documented. Kids with disabilities, students from minority groups are really restrained and secluded on a much higher degree than other students. So there are tremendous issues. The amount of trauma that is induced when a child is restrained and secluded. So next week, we'll be talking about that with Guy Stevens, and we'll be talking about action steps that you can take, because I don't want to just like have depressing stories. I want us to say, okay, what can we do about it? And Guy is the perfect person. His son was restrained in the school that he was at, and Guy has just taken the steps to be a leader in the movement to end seclusion and restraint. So that will be a good session to tune into next week. And I think we got everything. Yes, and Karen says, yeah, I'm in that. The B Team is a great Facebook group based on Dr. Green's work. Yeah, I really recommend his website, Lives in Balance, and then also the B Team Facebook group is an excellent resource. So thanks for bringing that up, Karen. So we are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for being here. I love finding out what specific things we can talk about that are meaningful for you in this moment. So once a week, usually it's the first week in the month, but this, because of the holiday, that didn't happen. But usually the first Thursday of every month, we'll have a Q&A time. We have some more exciting things coming up. Julie Costin is going to be a guest on our show February 13th. So we have lots of other good things coming. I hope you make Thursday at noon Mountain Time a time that you can take your lunch break and watch our live show. And also know that we welcome all the replay viewers. So share this on your page and your friends and family can see it too. So until next Thursday, you guys take care and we shall see you soon.